Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of the DWS Community Cafe. I'm Rachel Fraser from DWS and I'd just like to welcome everybody here. As you know, if you've attended these sessions before, we're just here to help you make the most of your investment in the Dimension products. So we want to try and make this session just as interactive as possible for you. Our solution experts are here to help you and walk you through useful tips and tricks and how to make the most of the solutions we have here. So today we're going to be talking about how to use the OpenAPI with Dimension SwifTest. And feel free to send any comments in the chat, or at the end of the session we will have a small window for questions where you will be able to unmute yourself and ask questions if you feel we haven't covered anything. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Rhian Williams, who will be talking you through the OpenAPI today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rhian Williams. I'm a developer in the product team here at DWS, and I was involved in the OpenAPI project. And I'm still responsible for maintenance and adding new functionality as the requests come in. Yeah, that's my email address. If you want to send any questions to me as well, if it's of a more technical nature, I'll be more than willing to assist. Okay, so today's session, we'll be covering the OpenAPI, as Rachel mentioned. So without further ado, let's kick it off. So these will be the topics I'll cover in the session. So I'll go through what is the API and how to use it, authentication, repository management, scheduler functionality, as well as test queue functionality, and then some additional info will be available at the end of the slides and the demo. Okay, so high-level overview. What is OpenAPI? So the OpenAPI is a mechanism for clients to connect to SwifTest via the internet, and this is done over HTTPS. The API adheres to the OpenAPI Standard as well, which basically determines how clients interact with the API, and it should be language agnostic, which means it should be accessible to anyone and any language as well, regardless of which platform you are using. So that makes it actually much more accessible to a wide range of consumers. So at the moment we have the SwifTest application, which I'm sure you are familiar with, is a desktop application. It's standalone installation, and as you can see from the diagram, that's the current flow of the SwifTest desktop app. And with the OpenAPI, we introduced a new mechanism to communicate. So that's done via HTTPS. And SwifTest users, you do need a OpenAPI subscription to access the OpenAPI. So the OpenAPI is basically a subset of the functionality that's provided by SwifTest. By using the OpenAPI, the customers can integrate TS features into their own apps, which facilitates and makes testing a lot easier, as well as executing these functions as part of the business process workflow. So integration can be done in a number of ways. You have the direct integration, whereby you actually implement a development lifecycle, which can be fully customized to suit your business requirement. And then we have the second option, which is a low-code solution using like a third-party application. This is more suited to non-developers as well as more business-focused audience, and it should be favored when the time to release is shorter, and when customization is not as much of a prerequisite, and reusability is important as well. So I'll go through the second option today, which is showing you how to integrate with SwifTest using this low-code solution. Just go to the next slide. Okay, so how do you go about using the OpenAPI? So we have the link to the OpenAPI. I'm just opening that quickly. Yeah. So this is I did mention earlier in the presentation that the OpenAPI standard wants to make the API language agnostic, and it should adhere to like a list of standards which describes what services and functionality the OpenAPI provides. So so this is the OpenAPI standard, and as you can see, there's all these methods. Like we have a login method, we have functionality where we can access the repository data store information, as well as a scheduler, as well as a test queue. So in the demo, I'll be going through each one of these services, and then just giving a brief rundown of how to actually implement that using Postman. So the prerequisite for using Postman is that it should be version 9.10. That's the latest version. So yeah, so just make sure that when using Postman that you are on the latest version. So that's it for the slide part of things. So I'll just start with the demo now. Okay. So these are the functionality points that is available. So first of all, you need to log in. The API sends back a token, and this token is used for authentication across all the business operations. So I did so the username password is quite so it's case sensitive. So I have just used like a dummy password, but I have logged in, and as you can see, this is the token that we got back from the OpenAPI, and this is like a signature where it says that I logged in, and I'm authorized to use all this business operations. So one of the main sections of the OpenAPI is managing repository data and repository data store data as well. So the first operation is getting data. So you basically invoke the endpoint, and you call the repository data store operation, and there is paging as well. So if you if you know that the data store is that does contain quite a large number of records, you can actually do some paging. Let's just go 20. Go synth. Okay, so what this does now is it uses the token that was obtained when you logged in, and then it passes that token through to the API service, and then it validates to check am I authenticated, do I have a subscription, and am I authorized to actually view the data. So the API is a REST API. So the operations can be consumed via get, post, and put methods. So what I did now was a get operation. So all I said is from the repository data store, give me all the records that exists, starting at page 1, and I want 20 records. So the result set is JSON. So this is what's returned. So it basically shows basically shows the repository data and the description and the status showing that it's active, as well as the last updated date. So if you want to drill down into, say for instance, let's use this guy, ID 65. So now we know we have a list of repositories. Now I want to drill down into the code 65 to actually see what data that repository contains. The next operation will then be so now we retrieve the repository by the ID. So this ID will be passed as a parameter to the to the OpenAPI service. And if I click send, and it goes through the whole process again, it does authentication and so forth. And now it comes back and then it says this is the repository, and this is the columns and data within that repository. So so there's a field, or there's a column called description, there's a column called num. So it just has those two. So that's just retrieval of data. What we can do as well, if we want to create a new repository, these the create, update, and delete operations are available as well. So for creating a new repository, as I mentioned, all the data is in JSON, so we can just modify it by text. And as I mentioned as well, this is a low-code solution. Using a third-party tool to actually access the API. So there's no integration needed. We don't need to understand how to code. It's very straightforward, and you can even use this as part of your workflow, as I mentioned as well. So let's create a new repository. Let's call it So what we're saying here is create a new repository. We call the name it demo community cafe 7:15. That's the time here by me at the moment. And we call the description that as well. So for column list, let's just leave it as is, supplier and amount. So we invoke that operation. So we should be so we should get a ID with the newly inserted record. So just bear with me. My internet connection might be a bit slow. Okay, here we go. So so this will tell you that if you get a 200 response, it means that the transaction was successful, and it will return the ID of the newly created repository data store. So we should have a new repository called with the ID of 70. So if we go back to our get by ID method, and if we enter 17 here, so we now want to just see what is stored in there. So that brings back. So this is the one I just created. Community Cafe 7:15 description demo. So this was created, and the column. So there's two columns. One is supplier, and one is amount. So if you now want to update, so say for instance, we not happy with the name of the columns. So when we pass in the ID, so this is an update operation. So we will now change the name. and once again it comes back with a 200. But now we have an exception. The alias is the repository data store with name testing Jan 2 already exists. So it does check that you don't update in the existing repository with that of a new one or an existing one. So it makes sure that you don't have any conflicts. Let me change that. Let's go version 2. Okay, so that's happy with that. So now we updated the name of our newly created repository to the new name, and if we just check again what comes back, then the name should have been updated. So what we can do as well, you can delete the repository. If you want to delete, so I'm not going to delete that one now because I'm going to need that for the rest of the demo, but I can delete an earlier one that I created. So 69 was the one I created just before the session. So now we're saying delete liquid 69 from the repository data store, and if we query it now, we should not get anything back. Yeah. So now we it shows status is deleted. So that's how to delete a repository. And then okay, yeah. So that handles creating and updating and deleting data. So now what do we want to add data to our repository? So we have those two columns, supplier and amount that we added. So I'm going to add some DS data to that repository. So let's first get the data to actually see that what's there is okay. So we have one row, and the supplier amount is not populated, and the amount is not populated. So let's just create another row. So now we want to. So we have a repository data store, and we have one row in there. Let's add a second row. Call that supplier expo and amount 50. Okay, once again, it shows 200, and which means that the operation succeeded. Let's do the get data, and this should now bring back those two columns. So as you can see, row number 2 and that we just created with a supplier expo and the amount 30. So what do we want to change? So now let's change expo supplier, and let's change the amount to 60. So you have to tell it that yeah. So this is there's like a subtle thing to be aware of. So you have to say that's the second row within that data store, and you want to change the amount column as well as putting a new value. Another thing as well, the fields are case sensitive. So what you get back from the API, so you'll see supplier is uppercase, amount is uppercase as well. So when you updating the column and the value, you have to just be mindful that it matches with what you have added when you created it. So we're changing the value to 2. And let's get the data again, and we should see the 160 amount that was updated. Yeah, so it took effect. Okay, I just want to show quickly. So now I'm not using the same casing as what's stored in the data store, so it should fail. and it will give you like an exception saying that there's no column called amount because it's case sensitive, looking for the amount in uppercase. And then get row data. So we're basically just querying the data for okay, so there's another exception. So this is basically saying that there's no data for row number 1, which is actually correct, because if we run our query again against the data store, you'll see it only contains 1 entry, but it's row number 2. So that's also another thing to be mindful of when getting row data. You have to actually make sure that there does exist a record for the first entry. So we fix that. We go back to our update. So we want to update the row number. We want to make it 1. I think I need to delete this guy. So let me just create a new record. Let's call it 1. Let's get row data, and then you should now return the first record for that repository data store. Yeah, so that basically covers the repository, how to create a repository, how to create data within the repository, how to update data that's already existing in the repository, and how to delete data as well. So before I go to the next operation of the servers, are there any questions?
Just before you, yeah, there is a question coming. Where did you enter the token? Is it part of the request header? That was the question.
Yeah, that's correct. So I can show the operation. So yeah, so here we go. So we using for our the OpenAPI uses bearer authentication. So you have to pass in a bearer token. So you have to select bearer token, and then you pass that in as a parameter. So the Git repository, you see the headers, and then here's the token. So authorization, and then your bearer token will be sent through in the header. So for Postman, what I found helps me a lot is something I figured out along the way is so after I log in, there's this nice utility function that you can call. So when your response comes back, it pauses the body, and then it takes that token and stores it in the variable. So that way you don't need to pass in your token manually on every request. So once that variable is set, it can be used across all subsequent requests.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so the next component in the API is a scheduler. So the functionality there is we can create like a once-off schedule. So save all changes. Okay, so Yeah, so this functionality also exists on the SwifTest command line, and it functions the same way. You can actually say, if you have a list of test queues, you can say run this test queue at a specific time, and it's like a once-off thing. So first, let's find like a test queue. There's a method as well, which can retrieve all the test queues. So these are the test queues that's active. And for the demo purposes, I've chosen queue number 33, which is which is one that was created for the OpenAPI for testing. So now I want this queue 33 with which is called the Q 2021 OpenAPI. So all the tests on that queue, I want that to run. So there's a method. The method for that is the create schedule single execution operation. So the parameters for this are we pass in your queue ID, and then you can say the name, execution 3, and the date. This is also another subtlety. The date has to be in this format, so year, month, and day. Otherwise, the operation will fail. So today's date is the 5th. And another thing as well, this is system independent. So my time here is 7 o'clock. So it will run the schedule based on my time. So 1930, let's make it from 1932. And then it comes back with a execution schedule. So now schedule execution with the ID of 156 has been created, and it will run in 2 minutes time. So if you don't pass in any, so say for instance I didn't specify the hour and the minute, it will run in 5 minutes from now. So that's a default if nothing is specified. So now let's check. So that the queue won't run because I don't have the like the pod and the agent and those things set up on my machine. So let's go to 156. So we now want to check what's the status of that one we just created. There we go. So this is a new one we just created, 156 execution, and the like the status. So executed is false because it hasn't ran yet, and sent is also false because it hasn't run yet. So that's why it's not showing up in this operation because it has to have been executed for it to be picked up. So I can show another one that has run, which is what you'll see when the actual schedule is executed. So if you call the scheduler status method, you'll see this will be the schedule ID, and it has completed, and it show you the start and end time. And it says the execution was successful as well. So this is an example of one that has ran. Our one won't show because I haven't ran it yet, and I need to have the pod and the agent set up on my machine. Schedules. So in test queues, I did go over this briefly. So this is a way to this is a way for you to find out which queues are available for you to run your schedules on. And this just returns like a list of queues and the owners and the status and so forth. So that's yeah. So that's basically it for using Postman. The next steps. I have put together 2 other examples. So there's an example using Microsoft.NET for integrating with the OpenAPI, as well as using Swagger for integrating with the OpenAPI, and those those examples are in the how-to guide for the OpenAPI. So I didn't want to just go through those examples again. I decided to rather create a new integration with a new third party to actually show that the API is language agnostic, and it doesn't matter which method you use, you can perform all the basic operations regardless of what technology you're using. So that's it basically from my side. Any further questions?
No further questions have come in. So yeah, that's great, Rian. I think that covered it really well. As I said, your email was there, or they could, if anybody wants to send emails to us, we can also answer them at SAM, which is just sam@dws-global.com. So yeah, with no more questions, would just be, for me to say thanks for doing that demonstration. Hopefully all the attendees found it useful. And with that, we'll just finish the presentation and I'll close the webinar. Thanks, Rian.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks everyone for joining.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.